I don't think very many people know our US exposure. I don't know if they know we're the largest liquor retailer in Canada. I don't know if they know we're one of the largest cannabis retailers in the country. And then our international exposures. I think the way to really look at it is, yeah, we do have branded product, but we're making branded product for every single top tier LP in Canada. So there's not a single name you can mention that SNDL is not manufacturing for them. So you may see a brand you love. Odds are at some point we touch the product going in that bag.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of The Dime. I'm Brian Fields. With me, as always, is Kellen Finney. And this week, we got a very special guest, Tyler Robson, president of Sundial. Tyler, thanks for taking time. How are you doing today?
Yeah, really well, thank you. How are you guys doing?
Doing well. Excited to have you. Kellen, how are you doing?
Doing well. Really grateful for the opportunity to talk to Tyler and dive into Sundial. How are you doing, Brian?
Yeah, I'm stoked. I am excited to kind of get the pieces of the puzzle kind of pulled out a little bit because it was pretty complex, maybe intentional, maybe not intentional, but trying to understand, what's Tyler's day-to-day like and what makes Sundial a little differently under the surface that I might not know. So before we get into all the fun stuff, Tyler, can you give a quick background on yourself and how you found your way to the cannabis space?
Yeah, totally. If you guys figure out what my day looks like ahead of time, please let me know because I'm still trying to figure out which way's up. Well, look, appreciate you having me. My background is basically in cannabis. So I started in the early days of Colorado, which very few people know about. Long story short, I ended up being one of the largest cultivators in the state, 156,000 square feet of indoor grow, 96,000 square feet of cultivation, largest retail footprint, and then the largest MIP, medical infused products platform. Long story short, divested of that and moved back to Canada to start the Valens company. Quick tidbit on Valens, which it actually became the world's largest cannabis manufacturing and derivative products. So things, edibles, vapes, pre-rolls, kind of anything you could think of. And then eventually a decade later, ended up merging that into Sundial. So I would say all things cannabis is kind of who I am.
I guess let's start with the extraction piece. How did that get started and what was that focus on? Was there something specifically that caught your attention that you thought there's an opportunity here?
Totally. I would say the thing I learned in Colorado is everything commoditized a hell of a lot quicker than anyone wanted to admit. So when you really look at the early stages of Colorado, like even going back to 2009, I would say every cultivator had a heyday. And then once commoditization hit, you couldn't move product if your life depended on it because then brands started to matter. But then eventually what we learned is actually like defensible platforms of manufacturing where very few people had IP really kind of stood out. So I took my learnings from Colorado at a $5 million population. Sorry, not $5 million, 5 million population, and took it back to Canada where we have 40 million and then put it on a global stage.
Totally makes sense. And diving into that though, that's not as easy as you just articulated, right? Like the extraction process is super complex. People have expectations, driving the margins, the orientations of understanding the data is the input. So take us through how you put those pieces of puzzles together, because I think there's learnings there that definitely I've seen on Sundial's transition.
Yeah, totally. I think extraction, even manufacturing as a whole, no one really understands, including myself. When I got into it, I had no idea what I was doing. And I probably made more mistakes earlier than anybody. That's why I kind of learned. But yeah, depending on the type of product you want, there's a different extraction method to get there. You look at ethyl alcohol, you look at hydrocarbon, you look at terpene extraction. Depending on what you're trying to accomplish and putting the end consumer first is really how you'll understand exactly what you're doing. So we were the only platform in North America that actually offered 5 different types of manufacturing via extraction. So we could basically make any product and we could do it better and cheaper than anybody else because we really bypassed a lot of the other infrastructure that some of our competitors were going after.
And one of those operational efficiencies ultimately was part of the interest by Sundial when that acquisition acquired?
Yeah, exactly. When you look at what Zach was doing, so Zach is the CEO of Sundial. When you look at what he was doing, he actually chased the Valens company / myself for over 2 years because of our positioning in the market. In the first couple conversations we had, I was like, there's no chance I'm joining this platform. Like we have a tiger by the tail, for the lack of a better term. But eventually I kind of saw what he was up to and I saw the platform he was building. And eventually we found a way to bring the two companies together.
That integration process, though, how does that work, right? Because you've got a really skilled supply chain operations. Now you're integrating inside. Is there kind of like an audit analysis you're doing? Is there expectations there? Hey, we're going to bring this over. How does that merging of the two kind of come together?
Yeah, I think when you really look at the merger / the integration of the two, it was tough. Like integration is tough. But when you look at the opportunity to reset the strategy, reset the people, and put the best players on the field, it was actually a ton of fun. And look, we felt some pain. We laid off 2,000 people, closed numerous facilities, upset the apple cart strategy. But 2 years later, or 3 years later, you actually look at what we did, and it was really, really meaningful and put us on a trajectory that I don't think too many people understand.
Yeah, those are the hard parts, right? It's like early on in the process, you're bringing two together and it's 1 + 1 shouldn't equal 2, it should equal 3 or 4, right? That's the expectation internally. But some of that means you have to make hard decisions and ultimately reset the deck and say, okay, going forward, here's where we are. We need to shed some of the excess fat and position ourselves long-term for success. So let's talk about Sundial. Can you give us just a quick breath of the size of the operations and some of the places you guys operate?
Yeah, totally. It's way bigger than anyone understands. And I know when we brought Valens and Sundial together, everyone would think 1 + 1 should equal 3. It was more like starting at 4 or 5, because before I actually joined, they had bought the largest liquor retailer in Canada. They had US exposure. They raised over $1 billion. They had global operations in the UK. So when you really look at resetting or level setting, a ton of work had got into it. So Sundial, in a nutshell, Canada's largest liquor retailer, Canada's third largest cannabis retailer, Canada's largest cannabis manufacturing and derivatives. And then we have 400,000 square feet of indoor cultivation in Canada. We have global exposure into Europe. We're distributing in Poland, the UK, Israel, Germany, and then Australia. And then I think we have exposure to several states online. When you look at the biggest exposure, I'd say there's 2 big opportunities really to double down on or bolt onto. Would be one of the 3 licenses in Texas, and everyone's talking about what's going on with hemp in Texas today. And then we're the top 5 operator in the state of Florida under the ban or parallel.
So then one would ask, as president of Canada, how do you spend your time? Is it constant firefighting? Is it a strategy and a roadmap and you're trying to take it down? Because there are a lot of different countries. You got one time.
Yeah, I mean, trying to figure out what time zone I'm on is definitely easier said than done. Look, I would say firefighting would probably be the best way, but I'm having a ton of fun doing it. When I wake up every day, what I try to do is solve 3 problems. Like, you can't climb Everest. So what I try to do is, like, what are the 3 biggest issues we're having as a collective global business? And I try to solve those. So I like to think I make very few decisions, but extremely impactful ones. It's kind of the way I tackle my day. But anything from federal legislation changing in Canada to pilot programs in Germany to Canada being upside down, it really is complicated, but I don't think I can imagine doing anything else.
How much does your approach change based on like geographic region where you put the fire out?
Depending on the economic sides of the problem, probably vast. Like, if you look at what's going on in Germany versus the US today, very different markets, very different problems. So I'd say depending on the day, it could be a plethora of issues that I'm kind of diving into. And to be frank, like, no one phones me with good news. And I think that's one thing that no one understands. Like, if it's going well, I don't hear about it. So when my phones ring, I feel a little bit of panic to get it. But yeah, that's the one thing I've learned is no one phones me ever with good news.
That's kind of tough, too, because in those moments when your phone rings and you know it's someone you haven't spoken to in a while, you're like, there's a problem here and he's reaching out because like he needs me. So the first question I would ask would be like, just from an informational standpoint, like, you're getting pinged with so many different things, you're trying to prioritize it. How do you structure, right, like the aggregation of the information in to say, okay, since we were here last, I understand all these components and everything has changed here, but how do you distill that information to make quick decisions like that?
Data. The way I look at it is men lie, women lie, numbers don't. And if you have the right data set and you are unemotional about your decisions, then I think it comes pretty straightforward. And I'd like to think I'd be pretty decisive depending on what it is, but I'd also be willing to pivot quick. So decide quick, pivot quick if something's wrong, but don't be emotionally invested in anything. It's like, you're going to be wrong more than you're right. So it's how quick can you pivot?
Have you built the systems internally to aggregate the data into a single platform? Do you use various tools? Have you built those tools in-house?
Depending on the country, I would say very different data sets. But yeah, look, we've invested in data and people, and we've surrounded ourselves with a ton of smart people, some significantly smarter than I am. And you really need to bet on those people to come with the desired outcome and support them in any way possible.
How granular are some of those details when people are bringing it to you and say, hey, Tyler, I got a problem? I would assume, right, given your status now and all the different countries you're navigating, you've probably helped them work through and say, okay, decisions 1 through 10, I want you to handle. If it gets to, level 11, that's when bring me on. Is that similar to how you've set it up?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think getting people to go deeper and really understand it. We have a thing at SNDL called the 5 whys. If I have to ask five whys, why did this happen? What did you do? How did you go about it? Why did this outcome occur? I think when you really ask why 5 times, you actually get to the root of most problems. And when you really teach people that methodology, they're actually pretty good at solving the outcome. But it's really getting them to go deep enough to understanding the source of the fire. Because a lot of people have a tendency to firefight, but being able to bypass firefighting and go directly to the source of the fire, I think is a skill that's really understated in this industry.
Can you give a specific example?
I could, but I probably shouldn't.
That's fair. But there was something there I felt like you were describing, right? That in your mind where you're like, this is a problem that we faced before, extraction, cultivation, where you're like, I don't want the team to face this anymore. So like, if that means we need to invest in technology and automation, then we need to carve out a portion of the budget because this problem has occurred and we want to solve it going forward.
Totally. You can go with something as behind as demand planning. Like when you're doing a new product launch in any country, use the UK for an example. You could think X and then all of a sudden Y happens. And it's like, okay, why did that occur? It's like, well, we demand planned wrong. Okay, why did you demand plan? We were a little optimistic on the product launch. Okay, why are you optimistic? Because the potency was off. Okay, why is the potency off? Because we didn't buy the right lot. When you really start going as to why something failed, you can really correct it in future product launches, for example.
100%. In the different countries you operate in, can you give just a breadth of the different operations? Is it vertical? Is it cultivation? Just so people understand the different scales, just as a high level, just so people see the different variables that you're kind of juggling.
Every country is different. Every opportunity is different. I'll go high level. You look at Germany, every product other than whole flower is banned. When you look at Denmark, every product is allowed other than whole flower. And then when you look at the UK, every product format is allowed, whether it's vapes, edibles, beverages, there's nothing off. So basically each market is completely different. When you look again in the US, so we're only a retailer in Michigan, but then in Florida, we're forced vertical integration. So we're medical infused products, cultivation, retail, manufacturing, everything you can think of. So every single operation we have is completely unique. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. We need federal legalization to come in the US and some of these other countries to kind of work out some of these bugs as they're rolling through pilot programs. But in time, it'll be a very concise strategy, but we got to roll with the punches today.
Are you guys able to manage like one singular supply chain to Europe and then kind of like distribute it from a single source? Or is it like the UK has to have its own supply chain based on their regulations and then Germany has to have theirs? Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah, effectively, there's some nuances between. So the UK on flower acts similar to Germany. So you can land it in UK and then end up selling it to Germany. But each one has its own nuances. So I would say each singular supply chain is very unique. Whether it's potency requirements, for example, you look at Israel, you can have between 24 and 28% THC. You can't move off of those ranges. Where in the UK, unless it's 30% today, it's not really selling.
So do you guys have like different facilities then for like, we grow Germany's cannabis over here?
Exactly. Different facilities, different partnerships, different brands, different format sizes, different product offerings.
That makes it easy.
Like everything you can think of.
So how do you then unlock operational efficiencies, right? To be able to position Sundial in this type of very efficient company. Given all those variables that are moving, how do you take the learnings and say, okay, we don't have these 3 things. We've got these 2 other random things. We're going to put this puzzle piece together and we're going to make this specific combination successful.
So I would say focus. I think a few things we have to hear as well is fewer, bigger, better. For example, a lot of people don't realize we're the largest purchaser of biomass in the world. So we actually procure a lot of what we're selling. We didn't want to try to grow everything. We don't have mega greenhouses like some of our peers. So in Canada, we have a procurement strategy where, again, in Florida is cultivating because it's forced vertical integration. So I would say less is more, really focus on your core competencies and then double down on those.
Would you say the extraction port is a core competency?
Totally, but cultivating is not.
Sure.
So I would say extraction and manufacturing is where we are the strongest. And I think we put better products in the market than most of our competitors. But again, like we will win vapes, edibles, pre-rolls. You'll never see SNDL win flower. You'll never see SNDL win beverage.
Is the win in extraction based on technology, operations, really data throughput? Like where is those specific nuances where others can't compete on?
I think all the above. And to be frank, like economies of scale, like we have the largest extraction platform in the world. We can produce a kilo of extract cheaper than anybody else. So some people may enter And some people may go after a premium segment, but on the volume game where 80% of the revenue is, no one can touch us.
And that helps drive the high margin products throughout the process because you start your input material, you're buying the biomass, you're processing it through the facility, you recognize what your costs are, and then you can push it out downstream.
Exactly. A good way to look at it is we can build a Ford F-150 on any derivative product better than anybody else. If you're asking us to be a Ferrari, we're going to fail, but no one can produce F-150s better than we can.
What's the biggest challenge that you feel like your team is still struggling to solve? So for example, we've got a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to this podcast and they think to themselves, hey, like, Tyler mentioned so-and-so problem. This would be something really build. Is there anything out there where your team's struggling with right now? You're like, if there was a product out there, this would be really beneficial for us?
Maybe not a product. I would say the strategies is everybody still seems to get distracted by shiny objects. And it's really hard to stay focused. It's ugly. It's boring. Everyone wants to launch a new brand or launch innovative products, but your bread and butter are really what's going to win. So again, going back to the strategy, less is more. We have the ability to stay focused more. And I wish some of our new peers would do the same thing. It's so easy to get distracted, whether France is coming online or Italy's talking about legalizing, where people are like, we need a new brand, or we think this product in 2 years will do great. But at the end of the day, we don't want to be first. We want to be best, and staying focused on our core competencies is the way to win.
Is there a decision tree internally that you guys use to vet those ideas? Because if it does take 2 years, right, you need to comb through some of those ideas early on and say, okay, like these 99 ideas, they didn't work through, but this one is worth the 2-year process to invest to hit this mark.
Yeah, you hit it spot on. And we say no more than we say yes. And it's when you really try to decide to swing at a pitch, think baseball. We won't swing at every single pitch, but when we really see a pitch we like, we'll really swing for the fences and get behind.
What don't most know about Sundial?
I don't think people know anything, to be frank. Like, I don't think very many people know our U.S. exposure. I don't know if they know we're the largest liquor retailer in Canada. I don't know if they know we're one of the largest cannabis retailers in the country. And then our international exposures, I think the way to really look at it is, yeah, we do have branded product, but we're making branded product for every single top tier LP in Canada. So there's not a single name you can mention that SNDL is not manufacturing for them. So you may see a brand you love. Odds are at some point we touch the product going in that bag, whether, again, beverages, chocolates, gummies, vapes. I can't really tell you who we manufacture products for because you'll go find out. But I would say that there's definitely not a name in the top 10 we're not working.
Oh, I love it. Let's talk about the U.S. first. Texas, Florida, any other states, and why specifically those two?
Look, I think Florida forced vertical integration. I think it's a massive market, and I think there's about a bit of a defensive moat. You can't, the barriers of entry, not everyone can enter that market. So I really like that market. And Texas, when you look at the untapped market in the U.S., on what big populace hasn't gone recreational yet, Texas is there. So we're patiently waiting for that one to fold, which we all know it's coming. It's a matter of when, not if. And then we're in other markets. We're in Massachusetts, we're in Michigan. But again, we've decoupled our strategy depending on the state. For example, Michigan, we're strictly only retail. We found a way to win. We're doing exceptionally well. And we're kind of staying into our core competency in that market. But you'll see us enter different states, foreseeable. But really kind of waiting for the federal legalization to go. And your guess is as good as mine is when that happens.
Sure, I won't put you on the record asking for the impossible question. But it seems like in Michigan, you had a thesis and you're like, okay, it's not working out here. We know we can do retail well. We still want some exposure here. With Texas, for sure, everyone is very excited. And I think the numbers there are going to be staggering. We can already see what the hemp industry is doing down there. So how does that play into the workflow from a strategic standpoint? I can imagine with all the moving variables, then you got the hemp news. How does that influence you? Is it more about we're going to take an active approach and try to push things in this direction, or we're going to take more of a defensive approach and say, okay, there's a lot of noise in front of us. Here's how we think we're going to play it over the next 6 to 10 months.
I think, again, you probably won't like my answer. It's a bit of both. We're trying to control what we can control in Texas legislation. Are we lobbying? Yes. Are we hopeful it's going to go? Yes. Can we really control the outcome? No. So we've written papers, we've sat with regulators, we've done everything we could, but again, we're just kind of waiting to see exactly how some of the legislation will fold, and we'll be ready to maneuver. We're hopeful that it'll go our way, especially with manufacturing products. Like, we really think vape will be a huge volume mover there, so we're positioning for that, but really kind of waiting and seeing.
So then, like, from a resource planning perspective, like, do you guys just have a number earmarked and you're like, well, if it goes this date, like, how do you kind of balance that maybe rapid change with potentially having to like deploy resources and like, hey, these 50 people have to go to Texas now?
I think that's basically right. We're extremely flexible and nimble, as much as I don't look flexible. We kind of wait and see. Like, you never want to overspend and wait on a what if, because you never know when it's going to happen. So we've kind of kept the lights on and the heat on, waiting for it to go, and done the bare minimum where people are focusing on different markets, helping out in Florida, helping out in Mass. But as soon as that switch flips, then we'll be a full out blitz in Texas.
Is there an internal thought or process of like leading with the processing side from a manufacturing standpoint and saying, okay, this is what we do best. We're going to set up operations here, and this is how we can set up our supply chain. We'll probably consider to buy biomass and set up here because this is where we dominate?
Totally. And I could tell you my strategy. I probably won't. But I think you're right. Like, when you really look at Texas, where we're going to be strong is the manufacturing and derivative side. You won't see us be a massive cultivator. There's other players that are going to do significantly better than us. So it'll come back to our core competencies.
Yeah, I think, listen, you don't have to tell us the plan, but I think it's clear you've outlined already. This is what we do really well. And given the way your approach is, we're going to stick with what we do well. And if it being a massive switch to cultivation, I think it would be very surprising.
Totally. Again, I'm pretty boring. I don't think you'll see anything exciting from us other than the ability to execute.
Are there consistent pushes? If manufacturing is the core competency that we live in, are you constantly tinkering with pushing the team? You know, where can we invest more? Where can we push these margins? Is there a continue iteration there, or do you feel like right now we've nailed it down, we've got everything won, and we're doing as good as we can do?
Definitely not. I would say we never are satisfied, and we continue to push the bar. New technologies coming out every year. New processes are coming out, new ideas. So we're constantly trying. I would call it the 80-20 rule. 80% of what we do is proven. 20% we're actually trying different things to continue to drive the industry forward. We've had some success and we've had some failures trying that. But I don't think you can ever hit a home run on every pitch you hit. So always trying.
Are you looking outside industries and saying, hey, what does oil and gas do? What does chemical manufacturing? Is just to get inspiration for ideas, because cannabis does a lot of things similar to other industries, and adopting some of those nuances, could be advantageous.
Yeah, we've tried. We've definitely looked at manufacturing equipment or IP or different processes. Some of it we've been able to maneuver into cannabis, and some we've had to go net new. For example, we're bringing on a new extraction line today. We've looked at every ancillary business in the world and couldn't find anything to do exactly what we're trying to do. So some of it's net new, where engineers probably hate us because we're pushing the envelope, but some people get excited about the opportunity to do something different.
Sure. At the end of the day, if you've got a challenge and a bottleneck that needs to be unlocked, you've got two options, right? You can look for it outside there, or you can push the innovation internally. And those engineers probably are pretty excited to fight a problem. Is there any more details you can share on that?
It'll be the largest throughput in global cannabis. I would say that.
Tease. What about the liquor sales? Explain to us the benefits there and how that works like as an overall portfolio.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of synergies between the two, especially when you look at the Canadian market. We both sell into the same provincial boards, whether it's liquor or cannabis. It's the same buying group. It's the same regulatory body. So the synergies between the two are massive. And even when you look at liquor, it's declining globally, but it's still a massive business. Like, when you look at how ingrained alcohol is into our communities, it's no going anywhere. So I think the liquor team, which I don't touch actually, are doing a phenomenal job keeping that business afloat and actually moving the needle forward when a lot of people are retracing. But look, it's a massive business.
Is it another thought of like it's diversification, but it also has synergistic benefits?
Totally. It's insulated too. Like, cannabis has been so volatile over the last decade. When you have a steady eddy like liquor, it provides stability not only to recruit talent, because the cannabis is the unknown, where some people love it, some people hate it. When you have a multi-business segment, I think it adds a ton of stability.
Definitely. And I think we've seen the other operators say we're going into tomatoes, right? It's like their way of trying to do like that same concept, but utilizing here is kind of like a little closer appeal from what's directly happening.
So regulatory, product, shipping, logistics, everything is actually tied to liquor in Canada. So it made a ton of sense for them to maneuver that way.
Is there any possibility for like co-mingling liquor and cannabis in the future? Is that just like prevented?
We're pushing for it, and I would say one day that'll fold. When you look at consumption in Canada, it eventually will be in C-stores. It will eventually be in grocery stores. It'll be on premise where you can go to the Keg or Earl's or Joey's or any of these chains, and you should be able to consume. We're a little bit slower in Canada with some regulatory reform. I was at a panel the other day And one of our members of parliament actually said, oh, it's only been 7 years since we've rolled this out. Like, we need more time. And I was like, well, it's one way to look at it. It's only been 7 years, or it's already been 7 years. Like, we need meaningful change to the industry to really push. But I actually think there's an opportunity that the two will coexist.
I mean, just like laying it out, though, it seems logical. I know I'm using that word again, logical, in this industry, which doesn't ever seem to operate like that. But it seems like that at least makes sense to consider.
Totally. Especially when you look at what's going on in Canada and the US with everything going on in tariffs. If Canada really wanted to move the needle and drive industry forward, it's an easy layup that costs them nothing. That would really kind of move the needle as far as revenue and economic growth. So I think you'll see it.
See, like when you say stuff like that, like it just seems so practical, right? Like people sitting down saying, okay, this makes a ton of sense. We should consider this. And then somehow it just never really materializes like that, which has to be so frustrating for you.
It's definitely frustrating, but I try not to get frustrated on things I can't control. I think on both sides of the border, there's a bunch of wins that you could throw on the board. But again, like, this industry isn't for everybody. And in 10 years, it's going to look very different today. So I try not to get caught up in some of these minute details. But yeah, there's a ton of wins both sides of the border that could be had.
Is there any countries internationally that you think people are just sleeping on?
Yeah, there's a ton, honestly. Like, even when you look at Germany, the size of that market, how quick it's gone, I would say people are sleeping on Germany because it's going to be a massive international player. And then you look at other ones like Thailand is turning out a ton of cannabis today. South America will eventually come online. Where you look at bananas or avocados or any agricultural crop, no offense to Canada 10 years from now, but we're probably still not cultivating a ton. I don't see avocados popping up anytime soon. So there's a few markets that in time will emerge as global leaders.
Is part of your role kind of keeping your ear to the ground and understanding like those markets and as they're materializing and being ready so that if things are going to move, your team at least has that part of the roadmap, say 2027, we want to be ready for X?
Totally, without a doubt. And I think that's part of our strategy. When you look at Canada, like, what is Canada known for in cultivating anything? It's really not. So I think that's why we've gone the asset light model as far as cultivation here as well, and really kind of doubled down on manufacturing derivatives. Because in time, will we buy feedstock from different countries? Without a doubt.
How much time do you guys spend on like formulation versus like technology innovation in terms of R&D?
Too much. Significantly too much. I think formulation and R&D is probably the one inhibitor to really kind of moving the needle, moving the mountains. I think there's a ton of time, and I think people should actually spend more time in formulations. Like, when you really understand what's going on with cannabis, I think a lot of people have launched flowers and edibles, but when you really go after some of these ancillary industries, like even with a vape, like, what is the mouth appeal in a vape today? I don't think anyone's hit that head on. And when you look at different markets like Juul and what they did in the US, like, they perfected it. No one in cannabis has done that yet. So I think there's a ton of innovation and formulation still to come.
Why do you think people don't do that now?
I think because it's still not federally legal in the US. I don't think there's big marketing dollars, and in some of these fragmented markets, I don't think each state is big enough to warrant hundreds of $1 million of investment. But when it folds, you'll definitely see that come.
Is there any sort of outside conversations with big alcohol companies or tobacco companies for future partnerships, things like that?
I would say maybe is probably the best answer. When you look, cannabis is a growth opportunity. Some of these other businesses, whether it's tobacco, alcohol, are fairly stagnant, not showing a ton of growth. When you look at the big apparatus they've built, everyone will be looking at cannabis. That's probably what I should say.
Yeah, the reason I bring that up is just like thinking through like the business plan and understanding like this is what we do well and this is what we don't do well. So we're going to focus all of our operations here. Plus, geographically, there's opportunities there which are advantageous for someone who is a larger position saying, hey, we're looking to find a partnership here. I didn't know if some of those conversations, and obviously that's probably a very poor question to ask because you're not going to tell it. But that's all a real thing. What question do you wish more people asked you?
To be honest, I'm not sure. That's a good question because I get asked everything under the sun. Even like, why am I still here? In Canada, I'm the longest standing cannabis executive in Canada. People are like, why are you still here? And honestly, it's the opportunity. It's really the opportunity to be a global player. And in Canada, we've had very few opportunities to lead a global movement. I think that's what keeps me motivated. And like, you look at our cash position, the opportunity, and I think that's all you can ask for is the opportunity to try. We're a global 3 operator when you look at consolidated revenue. I don't know what's more exciting than that, to be honest.
Is it hard to digest how long you've been in and thinking through all the iterative changes you've seen kind of over the course of your career?
I mean, yeah, day by day, it feels like nothing's changed. But even when you look back at a year, 5 years, 10 years, it's like, what the hell has gone on? And it seems like a dream at some point. But yeah, no, it's been a ton of fun. And I can't imagine another industry that changes as rapidly as this one does. So I'm having a ton of fun. But yeah, like, look, it's been a wild ride over the last 12, 15 years.
What's one blind spot the industry is ignoring?
The size of the opportunity. I don't think people realize how big this will be. And I think you look at German revenue today, even though it's still strictly medical, it's surpassed every expectation possible. Even on a volume, they've now imported 200 metric tons of cannabis and still trying to find more. I don't think people understand how big the global cannabis industry really is going to be.
How much time do you guys spend on researching like the waste streams and all of the potential like commodity chemicals that are being derived from just the process in general via the extraction, right?
Yeah, a lot. When you really look
That'll
at
be
it,
like a huge, because like that's what makes petroleum so powerful, right? Is that like it's the paints, it's the road, it's everything that you look at is derived from petroleum. And I think that cannabis potentially has a similar opportunity where like all of these different chemicals in the plant could potentially feed some of these commodity streams, if you will.
totally. A ton of focus is going there. Unfortunately, just federal legalities stop it from going in different industries. Like even the hemp industries is limited today, but without a doubt, it's going there.
Are there any U.S. strategic partnerships for someone who's listening to this and say, hey, Tyler, like I think we might synergy? Either you're looking for brands, extraction operations. Is there anything specifically that you're looking for where, an alignment could be beneficial for you?
We're already working with some U.S. parties that I can't disclose due to NDAs. Look, we're always open for business. We're looking for new partnerships. I would say the biggest thing we're probably open to right now is distribution globally. Some of these big companies have been doing it for 100 years and have very, very sound supply chains. That's something we need to double down on and really learn. Because again, when you start adding multi-country distribution platforms, like you really need to button down some of your systems.
Last question. What is the most impactful book you've ever read?
Good to Great, without a doubt.
Perfect. Tyler, for our listeners, they want to get in touch, they want to learn more, where can they find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find on our website, and I'm a pretty easy guy to find, considering you guys found me up in Canada. But yeah, I'm around.
Thanks for taking the time. This was a lot of fun.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thanks so much.